Hello and welcome to the right 300 tokens beat 100,000 noisy ones. Who expected a different talk here? Well, okay, there was a last minute swap. I expected a lot of people to come to the other talk, and I'm like, I'll probably stand up for someone who is really good, so I will get all the crowd. But I expected this one. Thank you. Okay, all right. So let me show you something. Before we do anything, I'm going to show you something cool. So look, I had CloudMD that has all the possible information about my project. You follow, right? There are all the code demos and all the documentation, everything in my CloudMD. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add error handling to my project. The information about how to handle the error is right there in CloudMD. So let's see what Claude does. It's print current files, CloudMD. It reads all the project, obviously thinking with very high effort. It found something. Look, finalized conventions in appendix, and it knows how to do it. So it adds it. And now it's going to run the tests. And the tests fail. What happened? 2 failures. What happened? Where is the assertions here? So yeah, it expected to find 404, but didn't find it, and it was 500 instead. So something got wrong. The coding agent got confused mid-task. Who thinks that I didn't shove enough stuff in my CloudMD? You saw it. I might miss some stuff. Who thinks adding more stuff will help? Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate your hand. Thank you. Yes, so obviously probably not. And the model is not a problem as well. The models are getting better and better, and Claude 4.7 with extra high effort thinking is a really good model. It really should be able to find how to handle exceptions and add the proper way to do it. The problem is not proper context engineering. And context engineering is the architecture of what your model actually sees. So yeah, my name is Baruch Sadogursky. I'm at Baruch everywhere. Context sommelier, because I love context engineering and wine. That's official title, level 3. I invented the whole level of certifications, and I got the best of it. If you want to try and certify, we'll talk about it later. I work in a company called Tesla AI. We do context engineering, and this is why I'm talking to you about that. Right, the most important slide of this talk is this. If you go to speaking.jbaruch, you will find a page dedicated to this talk right there. It has the slides, it has all the notes with everything, video that is recording, I hope. It's going to be probably published next week. I'll edit. You'll find the demo recordings and the code and the cheat sheet about everything we speak, all the links, everything is there. QR code, very convenient, also on the bottom of every slide. The QR code is going to disappear in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Do not despair, it's coming back on the last slide. Okay, what you saw here is what we call the stuffed prompt. And the stuffed prompt is cramming everything up front and hoping for the best. And it's not the best strategy. It's not the best strategy because it's not properly organized. There are conflicting instructions, and basically going back to that's the amazing prompt that I showed you. That's my CloudMD. Whoop, sorry. Where is it? As I mentioned, it's very As I mentioned, it's very well structured and organized. It has a lot of stuff. This is the 100,000 tokens right there. And error handling is being discussed in 4 different places with conflicting instructions. And in some place it says do 404, what the test expect. The other says do 500, what it actually did. So it took one of them random. It took the appendix one, probably because it just was the last one, and also appendix sounds like, wait a second, important stuff. Right, so, and because appendix sounds like important, so it opted to that, but it's completely random. Obviously, the right way to tackle is better context pieces. And one of the most important context aspect that we have right now is obviously skill. So if I take all this and organize it properly in a bunch of skills, I will get much better result. So here's a skill that basically describes very similar concepts of how we write an order service in our organization. Right, it goes into the details of how to do it, and it's very well structured, and it includes a chapter about error handling that obviously says how to do the right things. And those skills are limited in context and what they are talking about. And the most important part on those skills is that they are progressively disclosed. Who already uses skills? Okay, wow, that's good. I did the same talk 3 months ago, and it was like maybe third of the room. Now it's almost the entire room. So for the minority of you that doesn't use skills yet, the most important part is that skill is progressively disclosed. Basically what it means is that the context doesn't hold all this information in it all the time. Instead, the only things that are in the context is the name and the description. It's good because it doesn't blow up the context and there are no conflicts between different skills, but it's also tricky because it means that description does the heavy lifting of letting the agent know which skill need to be activated. And that makes writing the description tricky because from one side, it needs to be detailed enough for agent to pick it up. Hey, that's the skill that I need. From the other side, we need to stuff like preventing conflicts. If I have similar skills with very detailed descriptions that might signal activation for both of them, the agent might get confused which one needs to be activated. So description does a lot of heavy lifting, and obviously if I will go to my demo, and now I have the skill, those are the parts of the skill, grabbed the highlights, and then I will run the exactly same prompt, adding the error handling. Who thinks now it's going to work? You people of little faith. Yes, I find your lack of faith disturbing. But well, you know, those are skills, and we know that skills work, and it will run the test, and we will see what is going on. So now it will add the error handling, try and catch. Now it will run the tests. And test pass, come on. It wasn't a tricky question. I added skill and everything works. This is exactly how it should be. So yeah, fixed skill, static context doesn't scale. So skills, load well needed, when needed. And then we went from 700 lines of everything, conflicting conventions and the wrong answer, to 135 lines of skill loaded, focused conventions, and the correct answer. So that was a warm-up, and as I figured out, all of you already know this stuff. Now, the problem with skills is that very smart people that came up with skills not necessarily thought it as an artifact. Skill is a markdown file. What do we do with markdown file? We put it in, where do we manage markdown files? In text folder, in GitHub. We manage markdown files in GitHub. This is what we do. And this is not the right treatment of context artifact, right? Because we're going to talk about context artifacts a little bit later, but generally, skills are more than just a markdown like a source file. You need to be able to version them. You need to be able to distribute them. You need to be able to limit who can access them, for example, within an organization and what's not. And you need to get updates, versioned updates, and everything else. They are much more like your npm package or your jar file or your Docker image than source file that needs to be managed in GitHub. So yeah, that was one way of how context breaks. And here's another way of how context breaks. So let's see what's happening now. I have a RAG server. Who knows what RAG is? Everybody. What RAG stands for? Retrieve augmented generation, which basically means instead of getting the result straight from the model, it will be augmented with more information, which sounds like a good idea if I want to provide my agent with more context. So what did I do here? I took documentation. I have an MCP server here that is called doc search. I have a documentation about an internal library that I wrote, and I put it in a vector database. Exposed this vector database through an MCP server, and now I have a beautiful system in which my agent can ask questions about the library and get the right answers. Okay? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask to use this library in order to do fun stuff. So let's see. Okay. Notifications. I add notification support with the library called PG. Library called PG invented by me. Model has no idea what it is, but I have my MCP server with RAG. So now it should find documentation. So it will search a file. It will reach to my MCP. It will find, you see, it will find docs for version 3 with relevance 0.46, and will find more docs, even better relevance, 0.7, and closer to 1 is better. So this is obviously the right documentation. It will do what it said. It found exactly what it needs. It adds some stuff to it. Will it work? Who thinks it will work? Okay, you're still people of little faith. Let's see if it will work. Okay, it didn't work. It didn't work, and you predicted it as you are good with pattern recognition, little neural networks of you. Very nice. It didn't work because I just told you I'm going to show you how context breaks. And that's exactly what happened. Context broke because similarity doesn't mean correctness. We had documentation about 2 versions of the same library, version 2 and version 3. Documentation for version 2 was, for some reason, provided better similarity to the question that the agent asked. And this is why it was selected. Not because it was the correct documentation, but just because it was more similar. And that's exactly the problem with RAG. RAG only provides responses based on similarity. It doesn't have the notion of context that surrounds the results. So there are a lot of tools that we can use, and sometimes using some of them is wrong. So one of the examples that you saw is similarity when you need correctness. We needed to select which version of my PG library to be used, and just checking by similarity wasn't the right call. Another example is using docs from using static docs when you actually need a description of a process. There is a great MCP tool called Context 7. Context 7 is a library of documentation for pretty much any open source in the world, and you can add more. And this is great. It actually helps the model to understand how to use libraries of newer versions that it didn't have in pre-training, or less popular libraries that they didn't the pre-training might not know about. What it lacks is explanation of process, of how to work with the library that might go beyond just code samples and APIs. Another example of a wrong tool is putting in skills what can be and should be written in a script as deterministic script. So, and this is a big problem, specifically when you generate skills using LLM. So if you are using, for example, Claude skill generator skill, and you ask it, write me a skill that will implement the calculator, like the stupidest example ever, what you will get is a prose about how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide. When you actually need is a script that will do those basic operations. And it's very easy to overlook when you have a deterministic script that needs to go into a code, comparing to when do you need the reasoning for a prose of a skill. And it goes the other way around as well. So you might see this problem and you might say, oh, this is not good. You actually need a script here. Make sure that you go through all our skills and convert everything that can be deterministic to scripts. Sounds like a great idea until it starts to do stupid shit. Like using regex where it should actually take a look at the text and determine the meaning. It will write huge scripts full of regular expression, trying to guess every possible combinations of how the text can be, instead of reading the text and applying reasoning. And that's something, again, that happened to me a lot when I get frustrated about the third problem and kind of instruct the agent to make sure that it doesn't happen. Lots of times it will go to the fourth and will go to try and script what is unscriptable. So yeah, let's see what can we do instead. So instead of relying on similarity with RAG, we can have a notion of version docs and instruct the agent to actually look for the right version instead of searching for keywords in RAG. Process means skills. And you can take the docs that you would usually use as a reference material and embed them as a reference in your skills, enriching the documentation with process. And I'm going to show you an example in a second. For determinism, the standard of skills supports embedded scripts. It's in the standard. It is encouraged. When you have a use case in which determinism is needed, ask your agent to write a script instead of prose, and it will do it. And when you need a judgment, true judgment, script is not a solution, and you need reasoning. So let me show you all of those. So here I have a context artifact, a bundled context artifact that has all of them. So it has the skill, and this skill is a versioned process of how to work with my PG version 3. So it has an API reference. it has a process of how to do stuff. It delegates to a script that can, where is my script? Here. I have a script that does the right initialization of the of my library in the correct way. Where is my skill? Where is my skill? No, that's not my skill. Here. Here. Yes. So right, and it has a reference documentation that skill will ask questions as needed. So we have the skill for the process. We have the scripts for the deterministic parts of the process. We have the docs as a reference material for the process. And last but not least, we have rules. Now, rules are always on, and we can control the activation. We can say, use those rules only when you write code in Python, for example. So it won't pollute the context when you're working in Java or in Kotlin or something like that. And those rules are: use async API. Don't use the older API. Always check results. This kind of stuff. Those rules are also part of the same context artifact. And now we can see if it actually works. Let's see if it works. So now this is the plugin I have. This is the context artifact. And it has the docs and the scripts and everything. And now I'm going to write exactly the same prompt. And we'll see if it works. Will it work? Who thinks it will work? Okay, good. Pattern recognition at work here. And obviously, did you see the Claude status page lately? I'm not doing this live. I'm not that stupid. No. It is going to work, hopefully. Well, what do you mean, hopefully? It will work. It's pre-recorded. It has to work. Yep, okay. And here's the test, and all the tests pass, and yeah, nice. Okay. So, yeah. What changed? Before, we had the search doc with MCP, and it found similar topics, and it was completely wrong documentation. And after, we have the plugin, the context artifact, skill docs, script, and rules, and exact API with procedural how-to in the scripts, and we got the correct answer. Okay, let me do something real quick here, and we'll get back to our... Okay, so yeah, so as I mentioned, context artifacts, docs plus skills plus script plus rules, and all this has to be versioned, tested, and distributed. We're going to talk about tested a little bit later, but when you pack them together and you treat them as artifact, this is where the real change comes. Okay, skills are architectural unit, docs, scripts, and rules inside, and match the tool to the problem shape. Okay, 2 down, and let's see what happens when we clear the context. Okay, so now we have our skills loaded, and we need to decide which library version do we use for identification. Should we use version 2 or should we use version 3? The correct answer is, you saw it in the rules, version 3. It's all loaded, so it knows that version 3 is the way to go. And I'm like, okay, that's a good decision. Let's lock it in. Version 3 it is, and it's pretty happy about it. And now I'm going to clear context and ask, what have we just decided? What's going to happen? It has no idea what we just decided. And that's because, as you all know, LLMs are stateless. The entire idea of having a conversation is completely fake. The side that lives on the server side always gets the entire context that we converse with the model in one go. Clients, harnesses, tools like LangChain4j fake conversation in order to give us a sense of session management, which does not exist. And it means that when we kill this context on the client side and say, forget everything we said, it is forgotten forever. Is it though? It is not, right? And you know that it is not. It has memory. The problem is you don't really control it. Sometimes it's write something to memory. It's like you go to a therapist and it asks you questions and you answer something and it starts writing. They start writing. What are you writing? And they're like, we're not going to tell you. This is that. It writes something to memory. You don't know what it is. It's getting better. Latest versions of Claude already exposed to us that they have a writable memory. And you can see those writing to memory MD. And you can actually see where this memory is located. And you can actually ask, make sure that you remember this or that. It's still on demand. And the memory is not really kind of some artifact that you manage, but it's getting better. And we can do better. We can actually go and build our own memory that will be under our control. That we can then version, we can then save, we can restore on clear, and we can take control of, right? Amazing movie by Christopher Nolan, Memento, comes a lot when it in all those talks about LLMs, because it's a lot about that. It's the stateless agent that doesn't remember anything is right there. It's very on point. So yeah. Okay, so let's see what we can do in order to do better. So I'm going to show you here skill with memory. That's the same skill, the original one, the order service of how we manage orders here. But now it actually has a new part, which is memory management. Where was here? Memory bank. Architectural decisions are stored in memory decisions. Now, this is inside my project. This is not some obscure .claude that lives no one knows where. This is versioned right with my code, and it's a part of my code base. And all the decisions are logged in exactly the way that I wanted to be logged. And then, obviously, when I'm going to run this demo, and I'm going to run this demo with the new version of my skill, I'm going to do exactly the same. We need to decide on library, and we will get exactly the same, obviously exactly the same result about version 3, because we have skill, PG skill loaded. You already built fast API, use version 3. Do you want me to document this decision? I don't even need to reply. I just say, yes, it's version 3. And this decision will be documented because this is what's in the skill. So now it's going to run, it's going to save the decision, and if I'm going to run clear now, oh my God, this is all broken. Newspapering. Newspapering is good. Here is my decision, logged in exactly the same way we want it. I didn't even ask for it. It knew that it was a decision. And now, when I run one which we just decide, it will load the decision, and it will say, hey, we decided on version 3. Let me check what's on record. It goes into the decision folder, decisions, and it will parse it, and it'll say, hey, I know exactly what we decided. We decided on version 3, which is very cool. So, yes, the out-of-the-box memory is nice, but it's some obscure configuration that the agent makes for you. It's not, again, it's not engineered. You can do better. You can engineer your own memory, and you really should do it. So before, have a blank slate on clear, and now the decision is read from decisions, and it knows exactly what's going on, right? So external memory to your control. One more thing that it's even worse than the black box memory management is the black box compaction. Now, compaction is the worst decision ever made by whoever invented this thing, because it cuts pieces of your context and you have no idea which ones. It's completely obscure. Even that gets a little bit better. Now, when you run compact in Claude, at least, you can actually provide instructions on what to save and what is allowed to be compacted. But if you don't do that, or if you weren't clear enough, pieces of your context gonna just vanish and you have no idea which ones. So again, instead of relying on that, do the right thing and give yourself a built-in memory and like a engineered memory. Okay, so we have skills, we have the right retrieval, and we have memory. Who thinks our agent is better now? Not a trick question. It is better. It's like, I think it's better. We saw we tried something and it feels better. What we just did is vibe it. We looked at it and we were like, in theory, it should be better. We did the right things and it should be fine. This is what the fourth anti-pattern that we just did that. The Vibes Eval. Right? Now, evals, who knows about this term? Evaluations, evals. Okay, just a couple of hands. Of those, who thinks that it's a fancy name for tests? That just people want to look smart when they say evals instead of tests. Okay, who thinks it's not tests, but it's some kind of data science voodoo that you will never understand? Yeah, that was me. Both of them are right and both of them are wrong. They are kind of like tests, but not really. And there is some significant data science, but for us, the users, it doesn't really matter. So the difference is that tests measure correctness. We have assertions, which can be either right or wrong. Evaluations are not tests because reasoning is impossible to measure with assertions. Evaluations measure quality. And the way it works is that someone writes a scenario. And lots of the times it's going to be LLM that writes a scenario. And the scenario describes what we want our agent to do. The second part of it, it's a rubric. Rubric is what will be considered the right action on this scenario. This is a little bit like assertions, but not really because there is no assert. So, a very easy thing to do is just ask your LLM to generate scenarios and rubrics. And it will do a decent job by looking at your skill. It will look at your skill and say, your skill is doing that. So probably the correct scenario will be running that, and then the rubric is be something else. Here is the tricky part that a lot of people don't do, and they really should. You review the evals with your expertise. Yes. After you review it, we're going to talk about what to look for. Then we run the eval. And the way the evaluation itself works is that we ask an agent to run the scenario and then judge by the rubrics whether the goals were achieved. So here's an example. Let's say I have a skill that teaches my agent how to use Kotlin. This skill might be as simple as always use Kotlin. Okay? Fair enough. And then I generate scenarios. And the scenarios will be write an application in Kotlin and like to-do application in Kotlin. And the rubrics will be this to-do application has the option to add tasks and the option to remove tasks and the option to mark them as done. That looks reasonable. And then you run it and you get the results that without your fancy skill that teaches how to use Kotlin, the agent aces it every time. The evaluation is perfect. It's 100%. With your skill, the evaluation is also 100%, but you actually paid with tokens to load the skill and to run it. And then you think like, hey, something is wrong. Why did I bother to write a skill if I actually didn't need to? The answer is that you allowed bleeding, leaking, and didn't counter for negative scenarios. So the real test for your skill that teaches to always use Kotlin, is it that to-do app has add task feature? Is it? Yes or no? What is it? What is the real test? That it is written in Kotlin. That's the only thing that matters. Now, it means that our rubric was completely false. We checked if the to-do app is working, but this is not what our skill is teaching. It doesn't teach how to write a to-do app. It teaches how to write in Kotlin. Now, you say, okay, I see what's happening. I'll change the rubric to actually check if it's written in Kotlin. And you write before and after, like with context and without context. What will be the percentage of without context now? Without the skill, what's going to be the result? It's going to be worse, better? Well, not better, 100%. It still is going to be 100%. Because not only you checked the right thing, you also leaked to the scenario what the result should be. Remember our scenario? What was our scenario? Write a to-do app in Kotlin. So what agent is going to do without any skill? It's going to write a to-do app in Kotlin. What our scenario should be? Write a to-do app. Now, if I have a scenario, write a to-do app, and I have a rubric, is it to-do written in Kotlin, what will be the results of the evaluation without our skill? 0. It will write a to-do app in TypeScript, Python, JavaScript, not in Kotlin. Now I add my skill. My skill teaches the agent to use Kotlin. What will be the result with the skill? 100%. So, yes. So, although on the surface, the scenarios and rubrics that LLM generated looked legit, none of you spotted anything wrong with it. And the agent did a reasonably good job. It actually had a lot of problems that you need to watch for. And only you as a subject matter expert can see it and spot it and then fix it. So this is why reviewing the scenarios is so important, right? So LLM generates, you review LLM judges, and then you assess the data. And here is our evaluations that I ran previously. You remember I kind of went and did something, and that was running the generating and writing the evaluations. I took the lazy way out. I didn't even look at the scenario, so it probably has some of those problems. But even without looking at the scenarios, you can see that baseline without context is 21%, and with context we go to 100. And that's like what? Five times improvement right there, because I teached my agent on how to use this PG library. The reason why it's all zeros is obviously because the PG library does not exist anywhere except on my machine. So obviously there is absolutely no reason the agent can actually score something. Now, the only one that scored 100% is pure luck, because it decided to do the right thing out of completely blue. It could easily be confused. And you know what? If this scenario is scoring 100% without my context, it might be that this scenario is just useless. This is a task that the agent aces without my context. So either I don't need to check this scenario, or my skill, I can give up on this part on my skill. It will be smaller, cheaper. So again, we need to look at the scenario and understand what happens, right? And there is scenario 2, same 50 without, 100 with, and there is a third, 34 without, 94 with, and the average is 3 times improvement right there. From 33 to 100, 3 times improvement right there, right? So now the beautiful thing about those scenarios is that you can run them again and again and again when something changed. How many of you followed the drama with Claude Code a couple of weeks back when they discovered that it was running terribly for a month because of the regression that they had when they migrated from 4.6 to 4.7? It was a huge drama. It was really fun to go through their GitHub issues. People brought evals to show them the degradation. And they're like, oh, no, that's not that. Try to set it to high effort. This like stupid excuses. And then after a month, they were like, oh, yeah, you know what? We probably did something. Now, evals catch that. I have a plugin that I have evals for it that was consistently score 100% with context. One day, I run the same eval, and it's 75. Same version. I didn't check. I didn't change anything. No LLM judge changed. No harness changed. The only change was the version of Claude Code that I used. And then I knew that it's not me. And then I went to their issue tracker and discovered that I wasn't alone. But this is how you know that you still run it. Now, if you have a situation in which you don't have a lift, you checked the scenarios and they're perfect, the rubrics are perfect, and still your skill doesn't improve anything, or even maybe with the skill it performs worse, this is a great signal as well. This means that the model or the agent are now smart enough to do what you used to teach them with context without any additional context. And this is great, because one thing we love more than delete code is delete skills, because it actually saves us money. It saves us money because we don't pay for additional context. So yeah, 15 minutes ago, you watched an agent fail with 100,000 tokens of context. And now you know why. Stiffed prompt, instead of doing that, do skills, lazy on demand, context artifacts, wrong tools, use the right tools. Skills, route to docs, scripts, or reasoning, and match the tool to the problem. External memory, your management, versioned, backed up, portable across clients, and evaluation. LLM generates, you review, LLM judges, you assess the delta, you keep doing it over and over again for every change in your skills, in the agent, in the harness, and you know where you land. So context engineering is an architecture problem. Context artifacts are building blocks. If you want to hear more about context engineering in general and what Tesla do in particular, AI DevCon is coming up to London in 3 weeks' time. It's dirt cheap, and 50% makes it even cheaper. Seriously, it's going to be a great conference. The speakers are amazing. Come and join us. I promised you the QR code is back. This is the same QR code in the beginning. It actually has my discount for the DEF CON, so this is the URL that you can get the discount as well. Baruch, hashtag DevOpsUK, hashtag context engineering. I expect it to be trending, people. And if you have any questions, we have 5 minutes. Thank you.